Hi guys, welcome to Parawomenradio. I'm Amy. Tonight we will be hopping back onto the Parawomenradio party prison bus and delving into the world of plea deals in the United States. Joining us on this party prison bus is a special guest who has firsthand experience navigating the legal system and spending time behind bars. He considers himself fortunate to have had the resources, money, to secure legal representation, which ultimately led to a successful plea deal for him. And as we explore the topic of plea deals, I cannot help but question the role in high profile cases such as Chris Watts's case and his plea deal. Fortunately, our guest owns some real estate over on Watts Island, so we're going to talk about Christopher Lee Watts. My guest says he knows a little bit about Chris's plea deal, what Chris's life is like behind bars, what's in store for him down the road, and more. Before I welcome my guests, if we could just start that algorithm dance party that you know I like to do, just start warming up your fingers and just dancing them right up to the hearts and thumbs up button. It's just a free way to help us dance out into the algorithm, party out there, bring more people back to the party. And it's just really, really appreciated. And if you like my content, hit that subscribe button while your fingers are nice and warm. It's a free way to help me out. If you don't like me, then you can just hit that unsubscribe button and no fuss, no muss. Have a guest. You know, I like to collab with people and have guests on. And so tonight, as we unravel this plea deal stuff and their implications in the criminal justice system and with the Watts case, and to help me do all of that, I want you guys to help me welcome my special guest. Oops, I think I just saw him walk away. My special guest, a drum roll, Jeff Smar. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks. It's Friday, so, it's all good
Yes.
Friday. Do you work a regular work week where it's Monday through Friday?
No, I don't. I wish I did. I've been going through some medical issues. I've had two major surgeries recently, and I'm just finishing up physical therapy, and I'm ready to go back to work. So I'm, gearing up for that.
Wow. Well, I congratulate you for doing all that because I had to have back surgery and I had to go through physical therapy, and it's not easy, like getting yourself back up into tip top shape and to get out there and work again.
I've had three back surgeries, and but subsequent to that, I had an incisional hernia because of my back surgeries. I had to have that repaired. And then while I was dealing with that, I had to have a total hip replacement. So, but
Gosh,
I feel great now. And so,
great. You're like a bionic man now.
well, yeah, something like that, I hope. Yeah,
Okay, so what I thought we would do is we would first jump into your case and who you are and all that stuff. And then we would kind
sure.
of like go over to the Watts case, the Chris Watts case, because I know that you are a follower of the Watts case as well. So,
Yeah, I'm on the Watts Island, unfortunately.
yeah, I said you own real estate too. We all do. What can we
It's
do?
hard to roll off that island. I mean, once you get on it, and it's because the whole case is so infuriating. The way that everything went down is it's hard. You just get emotional about it. So,
Yeah, it's a very emotional case. What did you find the most emotional about the Watts case? What made you go, oh, the most?
well, I mean, one of the things was the topic of your discussion tonight. But before we get into that, probably more of the involvement of others, in the case, because they're it's just common sense when you look. And the thing that did it for me, when I realized that he couldn't have acted alone was there's a gate at Survey 319, and that gate was open and closed, and the time he was in and out was something like 32 or 36 minutes or something like that. And there's no way that he could have done what he did by himself in that time. So, it's just common sense. So, and not to mention the cell phone records and the pinging of a certain other person's cell phone the morning of, and it makes you go, it makes you wonder.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the case that makes you go, how can that be?
Yes.
So looking at your case, let me bring some stuff up. So I couldn't find what I wanted to find of yours was hidden behind a paywall at the newspaper, but I did want to bring this up. Okay, so this was something I found on Facebook, and it was the Times of Northwest Indiana, and there was a headline: Jeffrey John Smear has now been charged with allegedly committing 3 armed robberies this month in Porter County. Check back for updates. So tell us what led you to this space in your life where you were charged with this.
Okay, to be clear, it wasn't just 3, it was 5. And to be honest, I committed more than that. I was only I only pled to 5 out of the 9 that I committed. I mean, I'm okay with telling, the truth now. So
that's great.
So, well, it's interesting, but it's probably a common story. What led me to it? I mentioned that I have had 3 back surgeries, and after I had these surgeries, I had gone through years and years of pain management therapy, and this led to doctors prescribing copious amounts of narcotic pain medications. And after years of doing this and, really getting, I got to the point where I was tired of dealing with constant fights with insurance companies and pharmacies and stuff because of these medications. So I got to the point where I thought, well, you know what, I'm just going to, I need to ask my doctor to go in a different direction. And I kept pressing my doctor to do this. And I'm not going to mention any names, but I did my I'm the type of person, I do my own homework. And I wanted to go in a different direction. And my doctor didn't want to do anything but keep prescribing medications and doing injections. And because, in my opinion, this is what brought the money in for them and the bonuses and everything because of the big pharma.
Well, and it was also, not to interrupt, during that time period where they were really pushing the opiate drugs, like they were like, you wouldn't get addicted to them. They were like a miracle type drug. And that started in the 90s. And then in the 80s, I would say. And then by the early 2000s, we were like, they lied to us.
Yeah, actually, Amy, it wasn't in the 80s. It was much later. Before this, doctors didn't prescribe medications like that. From what I have learned, but
maybe it was in the 90s, but it was right around that time, because I remember growing up with it being in my house because my stepdad took it, but none of us thought to take it. Like, it just was before we thought to take that kind of stuff. But by the 90s, when I was sitting down behind a desk, late 90s, it was coming across my in messages saying that, this
right.
Terror was unleashed upon us. So it was maybe the 90s. My bad.
Right.
I'm sorry, but go ahead.
Oh no, it's okay. So
Oh, hi,
as a
Earl.
result
Welcome
of
to the
this,
channel.
pardon?
No, Earl's new to the channel. Earl just came and he's new to the channel, so I was welcoming him.
Yeah, I mean, as a kind of as a sidebar to this, I have mass tort legal lawsuits against 3 big pharma companies because of this, and a lot of people do because of what they have done to people's lives. But in my case, I have to kind of be careful of what I say. But long story short,
yeah, if you have some lawsuits, you got to be really careful.
Yeah, well, I wanted to go in a different direction with my doctors, and they didn't want to do anything but keep writing prescriptions. So I decided one day that I'm just going to stop going to the doctor. Okay. And I did that. And after about 2 days, I learned that that's probably not a good idea. I had no idea how strong the medications were that they had me on. And basically, after 2 or 3 days, I was in so much pain and I just wanted to die. I mean, it was so bad. And I didn't realize how bad it was going to be. I just thought, well, I might be a little uncomfortable for a day or two, and then, I'll be okay. It definitely wasn't that way. And I don't advise anybody doing that.
Well, after 2 days, couldn't you have called your doctor and been like, I made a mistake?
Well, I probably should have, but at the time I told my doctor, I was upset and I canceled all my appointments. And, I was going to just be a man and get through it, After a few days, I got to the point where, like I could not barely even move. Like the pain that it was controlling in my back was, multiplied, times 10. Yeah. I couldn't even barely move my legs. And I had called a friend that I had talked to like a couple of months prior, and he had a couple of pain pills or something. I can't remember the situation, but I think we were at a birthday party and he had a couple of pain pills and he offered one to me. And I said, no, I'm already taking, all this stuff. So, I ended up calling him and, without, I can't, mention any names, but he said, no, I don't have any pain pills right now, but, have you ever done anything harder than that? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, have you ever snorted heroin? That's way cheaper than you trying to buy medications to cure your sickness and stuff. So I tried a little bit, and
I don't mean to interrupt with you, but I think YouTube's going to be a little wonky if we say the H word too much. So
sorry.
What is is horse one of the terms for H? What's the nickname for H that?
Just a junk boy. So I tried the boy.
H. So a friend said, have you ever tried H before?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I told him, I actually lied to him. I never had. I mean, the hardest thing I have ever done was smoke a little marijuana before that. But I said yes, but it's been a long time. And I said, but I'll try it again if you've got some, because I was so desperate. Mm-hmm. And, I just wanted anything to alleviate what I was going through, because I was in bad shape. So I tried a little bit, and it immediately took care of everything. And from there, I already had, as you can tell from my past record, I already had an addictive type of personality. Mm-hmm. I had previously gone through alcohol addiction, which I beat. And so it was kind of like love at first sight, because it completely, just a little tiny bit, took away everything, and I felt great. But the problem with that is that just a little tiny bit, that doesn't last very long, and so pretty soon it becomes an everyday thing, and you're just more and more, and you're doing stupid things to obtain that, and it's so a long story short, that's how I started into that.
So it was substance abuse that led you down that road, into the land of plea deals. I wanted to show. Yes, Jeff had shared with me this great docu-series, and I wanted to show a bit about it, and then just talk about it as an introduction into the life of plea deals.
Yeah, so, that's great. Yeah.
2 hours every day, all across the country. New and old television shows demonstrate justice at work. Americans love trials. Everyone knows the rules.
Are these the photographs, Mr. Cummings? The Honorable Mark Burns presiding.
The judge.
I show you this weapon, Lieutenant Drum.
Evidence.
Exhibit 1. I ask if you...
How much are you being paid for today's court appearance?
Expert witnesses.
$3,000. Objection, this is irrelevant.
Attorneys.
I don't see the relevance. I do.
Prosecutors.
No more questions.
The defendant. The jury.
We find the defendant guilty.
Not guilty.
We're deadlocked.
The public perception of our criminal justice system is deeply shaped by television. And that perception is that jury trials routinely occur as a way of deciding whether somebody is guilty or innocent of the offense of which he or she is suspected or accused.
Any student in a civics class in elementary school or junior high school will learn about a system with a trial by jury and a right to counsel and proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and it won't remotely resemble the system that we have.
When your name is called, please stand and announce that you are here. Kevin Washington. Thank you. Rosemary Gonzalez.
Please have a seat.
Thank you. Pablo Hurtado. Thank you. Mr. Martinez, how do you plead, sir, to assault on a family member as alleged in cause number 955015? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Are you pleading guilty?
You're pleading guilty because you are guilty and for no other reason.
Yes, sir. And for you, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty. How do you plead that reduced charge?
The Sixth Amendment to the Constitution guarantees every citizen the right to be judged by a jury of his or her peers.
Do you want to give up those guaranteed rights and proceed with plead guilty today?
Yet about 95% of all people who are convicted of felonies across the country give up that right and plead guilty.
In exchange for a plea of guilty.
Most of these guilty pleas involve bargains in which the accused pleads guilty in exchange for a lesser sentence or a reduced charge.
How do you plead to aggravated robbery alleged to refer? The system would collapse. If every case that was filed in the criminal justice system were to be set for trial, the system would just entirely collapse.
A lot of people call it a necessary evil. I look at it as a necessary component in our criminal justice system. But have to understand that plea bargaining only works if you have experienced, competent defense attorneys, experienced, competent prosecutors, and a judge who will oversee and make sure this is done correctly.
How do you plead that reduced charge?
But what if one or more of them, these key legal figures, are not as competent as they should be? What happens then to the plea bargains, which are now so much a part of the system? Steve Bright is a defense.
I think that's the part of it, that you need to have competent people behind you, and you need to have money to pay for those competent people. And Jeff had mentioned to me that his plea deal had went pretty okay because he had money or resources behind him, but not everybody has that. So can you tell me a little bit about how your plea deal began?
Well, my plea deal was kind of complicated. I'll try to get through it quickly because I know we have other things to talk about. My most recent and severe crimes span 2 counties. Okay. My defense attorney that I have had used for 20 years, I gave him a retainer, and he was my attorney. And he decided he was going to run for prosecutor in one of the counties that I was charged in. So this presented a problem. So I had to hire his partner, and long story short, like I needed serious legal firepower, and fortunately I had the money to spend with that.
Yeah,
And
because looking at your headline, it's just amazing that you didn't spend more time. How long did you spend behind bars?
uh, um, I'm not sure how long I spent in jails actually waiting.
Well, I meant prison. How long did you spend in prison?
In prison, I spent about 3 years.
And how long did you spend in jail?
In jail was probably total. That's hard to say, Amy. With this certain case, my most recent cases, I would say probably maybe 2 years
Wow.
total.
That's
Um,
amazing that you didn't do more time with the charges that you had. So
um,
did they trump up some of the charges?
well, that when you say trump up, that's an interesting point you make, because that, unfortunately, is what law enforcement and prosecutors do now. Um, and they've done this for a long time. You will get charged with one crime, but they will throw a whole bunch of additional charges up to that. And they make you plea to, it's the reason for the plea deals. Okay. You're not charged with one crime anymore. They charge you, they pad the whole, they pad everything. Like my most recent crimes, I mean, I was charged with like 15 or 20 crimes when, there was really only 5. When it all got weeded out, through my attorney and everything, it was just 5 crimes, but they had charged me with like 20 or 25 things, and that's what they do. They pad it because the whole system is created towards the plea deal now. It's not like what normal society views as, there's a court hearing, and there's none of that anymore. I mean, prosecutors are not prepared to go to trial at any time. All they want is a plea. That's the whole goal, So it kind of goes to, the point of your topic tonight.
Yeah, the I don't know if she was a lawyer or a prosecutor or what, but she said that if every case went to court, the legal system would grind to a stop. Let's watch a little bit more of this.
Defense attorney, professor of law both at Yale and Harvard, and the director of the Southern Center for Human Rights in Atlanta.
Well, it's not unusual for lawyers who handle a high volume of cases to not know their clients' names. I go to courtrooms all the time where you see the defense lawyers coming in and they'll stand up in the front of the courtroom and call the names of their clients because they don't know who the clients are and ask them to raise their hand.
Your name is called. If you do not have
That's
an attorney,
a shame.
and you wish to have an attorney appointed because you cannot afford one, if you will please so indicate, we will see that you get an attorney appointed.
It's a total shame that they didn't, they don't even know the name of their clients. They don't even know what they look like.
And I've seen that so many times. And, when I go in there, and I'm, I try to portray a certain, I walk in there as, it's hard to describe. My attorney, he's in fitted suits, and and when I walk in there, it's different than when these guys go in there and they don't even know who their public defender is, and it's like, and these are the people that get railroaded and traded, and it's sad.
It's really sad.
And Mr. Chair, would you stand? This is Mr. John Sherry. He's the public defender for Crisp County. I'm going to stand aside and give the public defender and the attorneys an opportunity.
The public believes that every criminal defendant has a right to the effective assistance of counsel. And that is just so far out of touch with reality, it's hard to even begin describing it.
It doesn't matter that the lawyer may be conscientious, just the system makes it impossible for that lawyer to do his or her job.
Nicholas Octavius Johnson.
People may be not guilty. People may be guilty of some less serious behavior than what they're accused of.
Katie James Bryant.
Many of the people that come into the court system are mentally ill, may have been put up to it by somebody else. The lawyer won't know any of that.
I do not contend that our jails are stuffed with people who pleaded the things that they didn't do. I think most people who are prosecuted of serious crimes are guilty of at least what they're charged with and ought to have serious criminal sanctions attached. But the problem is most isn't the way we do business in a free society that cares about individual rights and individual liberty.
It happens every day in every courtroom in the United States. People come into arraignment, they meet their attorney, they have a brief conversation, they're informed of the charges, they're informed of what they could plead guilty to, possibly to get out of jail that night, possibly not. They have to make a decision. That's the truth. Less interesting story than the one that Law and Order tells people. But that's the truth.
3 weeks after her arrest, Regina's parents managed to have her bond reduced from $70,000 to $10,000, and she went home to await trial. Irma Faye stayed behind.
When she heard me on the phone saying I'm going home, it was over with. From that point on, it was downhill, because she was going to be by herself.
Irma Faye then offered to plead guilty.
Even though I was guilty, I was willing to plead guilty because I had to go home to my kids. My son was sick, and I asked him, what's his name,
This is one of the saddest cases I've ever seen.
Yeah, I wanted to include it because people often say, I wouldn't plead guilty if I wasn't guilty, but what if there was nobody at home to take care of your kids? And if you didn't plead guilty, your kids would go into foster care because you were going to, be in jail. There's so many reasons why you would plead guilty.
It's easy to say that, Amy, when you're on the other end, but I mean, these people are totally, they're totally at the mercy of the system, and it makes me sick.
5-year probation, just let me go home to my kids.
The district attorney, Irma Faye says, did not agree to 5 years probation. He demanded 10 years.
I had signed the paper. He had took me back in front of the judge. He had, told the judge that I took the 10 years. And, they took me back to my cell. After that, they took me back to my cell. And an hour later, they had released me.
Of the 27 people arrested, 7 pled guilty, and most of them got out on probation. A few posted bond, and the rest stayed in jail.
One reason that a lot of people plead guilty is because they're told they go home that day, because they'll get probation. What they usually don't take into account is that they're being set up to fail.
As soon as you serve 5 years in state penitentiary, when allowed to serve that sentence on probation with credit for the 3 months that you've already served.
There are about 4 million people on probation across the United States, offenders who live in the community under supervision.
Pay a fine as to each count.
Among their obligations, they often have to pay fines, court charges, probation fees, and for different treatment programs that they must attend, all of which constitutes a sizable source of revenue for local governments.
Also impose a fine amount of $1,000 plus cost and surcharge, and also order that you receive.
Many of these people are poor, they're destitute, they have no money at all, and yet they're going to be told to pay a fine. They're going to be told to pay a fee to a probation officer every month.
Yep.
It's like taking money from the portion of society that doesn't have the money.
Exactly. It's like they say, these people are hit with probation fees and court costs and stuff, and they don't have the money for it. So what happens to them? They get sucked back into the system. It's horrible.
Yeah, that one woman, I will put the link down in the description. We don't watch everything or read everything, or I speed up and stop it for fair play use. So I put the link down in the description. But that one woman, after she took the plea deal, what happened was because she was now a felon, she lost her housing. She couldn't get food stamps for her child. She couldn't find a job. It just became a nightmare for her.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. Yep.
So when you took your plea deal, they had mentioned on this docuseries where you have to plea yourself guilty, which means confess all your sins to the court. Did you have to do that? And also when I heard that, I thought, why didn't Chris Watts have to plead himself guilty? That's a 2-part question, I guess.
Wait a second. Did I have to plead myself guilty?
Yeah. They said like pleading yourself guilty. They put it before the defendant, and they're basically pleading themselves guilty, which means that you're confessing your sins to the court, telling the court everything you did and how you did it. And Chris Watts didn't have to do any of that.
Okay. Yes, I did. I did have to do that, but Chris Watts was a special case. In a normal proceeding, it is the prosecuting side that is presenting the plea deal to the defense. In the Chris Watts case, for some reason, and I know the reason, the defense presented a plea deal to the prosecution, and the DA accepted it. It was totally backwards.
Yeah, isn't that?
And I'm sure you have heard that.
Yeah, in looking at in reading it, I found this article with People, and here it said that wife, family unaliver Chris Watts decided to plead guilty. Eventually, he acknowledged his life was over, and it was basically like his lawyers were basically telling him, look, your life is over. Why not just plead to it all? And we'll ask him to take the death penalty off the table. That's basically how they said they presented it.
Right. And I also think that there was, there was more motive behind that than that, which you know what that is. That's protecting somebody else who is involved.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when he did that, and when the defense, it's unheard of for the defense to present a plea deal to the prosecution. When the prosecution got that plea deal, they were like, this is a gift, not only to us, but not only to the DA who is up for election this year. So, of course, everything, went smoothly, and it was done and over with within 3 months,
Yeah, it went really fast.
And it's because of the reasons I just, and
well, there was a report, this People magazine article reported that he did not want to plead guilty to unaliving his wife and daughters. A close source to him tells People, but his lawyers helped him realize that given the extensive evidence against him and his own damning behavior during the investigation, he had little choice.
Right. He didn't look. The evidence towards him, there was no other choice he had. However, I don't know how you feel, Amy, but I am of the thought that since there was somebody else there at the time this happened, when Chris Watts said there was nothing there, I could not hurt my children, and I didn't do this to my children, I almost kind of believe him, and I've been fighting that, that belief, like maybe he didn't kill his children, because of what happened. I just look at the evidence, and I don't know. It's just it's hard to say, and there's only 2 people that know, Well, actually, there's more than 2 people that know. There's 5 people that know, but 3 of them are dead.
Yeah,
and that's a problem, And the 2 people that know aren't talking. So
yeah, I think that his mother, Cindy Watts, really just didn't get the memo because she was about the only one kicking up a fuss that he accepted a plea deal, because she's like, the unalive penalty isn't really even, when's it been done in Colorado, and even since then it's no longer in Colorado. But I think Cindy Watts.
Right. Yeah. It's been abolished. It was abolished like 2 years after. So, yeah.
Yeah. I just don't think that, I don't think his side of the family didn't get the memo, and Chris certainly didn't give them the memo. And so here's a little something about Cindy, and Ronnie just does whatever Cindy does. So Ronnie and Cindy talking about it.
Or not, the Chris Watts story is. So guilty plea or not, the Chris Watts story is not over, not by a long shot. Good evening, and thanks for watching Denver 7. I'm Ann Trujillo.
And I'm Shannon Ogden. Denver 7's Thomas Hoppo is the first reporter to ask Watts' parents their thoughts on his potential life sentence and what they believe really happened to Shanann, Bella, and Celeste.
Have you been able to see him?
No.
We got to see him one time. That was that Monday right before the plea deal. That Monday
Right
night.
before the plea deal, and that was it.
These are the parents of Chris Watts, the man who pled guilty to killing his pregnant wife, Shanann, and 2 kids, Bella and Celeste.
How did he kill her? How did he say he did it when he snapped?
He said he did the same thing that she did to him, that she did to the girls.
His parents went into details about the relationship problems Shanann and Chris allegedly had, but more importantly, spoke about the frustrations with his whole plea.
Are you guys frustrated with this attorneys here? Are you guys frustrated with the direction they may have put him through?
Yes, I am. I am absolutely frustrated.
We contacted his public defender, but they declined to comment.
Do you think he was coerced at all?
I don't know.
Do you think he was coerced at all?
I do think he was coerced, not only by his attorneys, but just by, he was coerced by, by other things that were happening in his life at that time. It's hard to say what was going on with him, and NK and I,
parents were in on it with the DA to get him to take the deal, because the DA loves to say, like, we didn't bring it to him, he brought it to us. He loves to say that.
Well, he loves to say that. And also what people don't realize is the reason that certain other people weren't looked into is because their family was friends with the DA. Okay, so there's a little I'm not going to say nepotism, but it's just there's that going on. There's a whole lot of things that are going on that people don't realize, on the side. But it's hard, it's true. The defense brought the plea deal to the prosecution, and of course they're going to take it because they don't have to do any work. It's already laid out for them. Look, I did it all. Don't look at anybody else, and stop all the investigation. And it's good for it's good for everyone. We can put this guy on TV as being the killer of his whole family. There's nobody else involved, and it's good for our budget and everything else. Well,
and plus, not to mention a death penalty case is like very hard to and very expensive to try. So he didn't want to do that.
Well, at the time that there was the death penalty, but at the time from what I understand, the other side wanted the death penalty, and there's been back and forth about talking them out of it and so forth.
I don't believe that. I don't believe it for a second, because a death penalty case is very expensive to try. And
right.
I don't believe that the Rourkes came in and said, oh, don't do it to him, just because I believe they said that, but I don't believe that he was putting it all on what they said. I don't think he wanted to try an unaliving penalty case. I don't think so at all. I don't like him. I don't trust him. I think that he's shady. And I just don't think that he was wanting to try an unaliving penalty.
You're absolutely right. And he is definitely not trustworthy. He has lied, several times. And look, he is not unique in the criminal justice system in this country. This is what is happening, throughout this country. And, it is what it is. It's like you play the game by our rules, and it's just, it is what it is. And, until we do something about it, it's going to be the same,
Yeah, it's a real racket, and it's a real money-making system
for
the government.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Yes.
I thought we could look at Rourke's, how he described what Chris did during the sentencing.
Your Honor, there are no words for today. By my comments, I'm not even going to try to express the horror, the pain, or the suffering that the defendant has caused to these families, to this community, and to all who are a part of this investigation. However, I do want to spend a few minutes sharing with the court the details of the crime, as so far you've only had an opportunity to review the affidavit and a few facts here and there that have been offered to the court in the motions and pleadings that have been filed.
Oh, I wanted to ask you too, is it common for, because Cindy repeatedly says that they weren't allowed to talk to Chris before, you know, he went to court, and they felt like they should have been able to see him and talk to him. Is that a common thing that, like, or was that Chris's choice not to see or talk to him? Or is that a common thing where parents, you don't see anybody?
You know what? It's hard to say. I mean, they have visitation rights. I mean, you can come visit. So I would imagine it was more of Chris's decision at that point to refuse a visit from his parents. So
it's not a common thing for your mom and dad to come visit you before you go to trial?
No, it is a common thing. It's just
It
I think that that was his choice to, you know, to refuse their visit. I think that's odd.
Yeah. So after he did the sentencing, Rourke had to come out and do a little victory lap. But I thought this was interesting. Kelly from Watts the Obsession posted this little DA Rourke post-sentencing off-the-cuff interview that we don't see as much. I will put the link for this down in the description. And I will stop it for fair play use. And I really suggest Kelly from Watts the Obsession. It's a really good channel. And this is all my opinion for entertainment and educational.
Watts not taking a plea deal, and a host of other really interesting questions. I hope you enjoy. Please leave a comment. Let me know if you've seen this video and if you thought it was interesting.
First, thanks for doing this. Speaking with us, we appreciate it. You bet. First, I just want to talk about the speed of this case. You know, these murders happened just 3 months ago in August. This case is now already wrapped up with the plea and the sentencing today. How unusual is it to have such a high-profile case wrap up so quickly?
Oh, I think it's very unusual. I can't really speak to the speed from the defense side, what their the thought process was. I think that once we...
How usual is it for a plea deal to go so fast like that?
It is so unusual for a plea deal to happen like this, the way it did in the Watts case. It is extremely... I've never even heard of it. I mean, that's why it's a topic of discussion.
How long did it take for your plea deal to go through?
Mine was a special case because it was over 2 counties and a special prosecutor, but it took about 2 years, you know, and this case, you know, took a matter of a couple of months.
Mm-hmm. It was,
and this is and this is a quadruple murder.
Yeah.
Had an arrangement or an agreement where the death penalty was taken off the table. I think that makes it all the more likely that it is going to resolve that quickly. But I talked to Shanann's family after this today, and I said, you know, I hope this gives a little bit of closure. It was fast, but anything we can do to try to get them on the road to healing is important. So from that perspective, I appreciate the fact that it got done this quickly.
So,
oh, sure. No worries.
He keeps trying to put it off on Shanann's family, like they wanted it fast. They did it for them, fast for the root checks. It was for them. Oh my God, he looked evil there.
No, I got that. I don't know this for a fact, but there's probably more people than you've seen in the courtroom in Weld County before, in terms of how many people are out in the hallways and in the.
They're the victims in this. It's all about him. It was a political move. He was up for re-election, you know, and everything just went according to plan for him. You know,
Yeah,
it had nothing to do with the roost checks.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, it was just another day for him, but it was an election year. And I do think that NK's dad was pressuring some people. And this is just my opinion, no proof.
Well, and that's an interesting point. You know, a lot of people say, NK's dad was, you know, law enforcement. Or something. He wasn't law enforcement, okay? Their whole family was connected somehow to the prosecutor. So they knew the prosecutor, and that's how this whole thing happened.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on. His wife has started a podcast. Have you heard about this? About his wife, Kimberly Corbin, and she has this podcast, and I'm not going to play anything from it because apparently she strikes people for everything. And so his wife.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yes, his wife even has a podcast. Is that normal for a DA's wife to have a podcast?
I don't know. I'm
Legal?
honestly, Amy, I'm kind of new to this whole thing, but I wouldn't imagine that that's normal.
I didn't even think that could be like legal but I mean, I guess, I don't know.
Pardon? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
That kind of leaves me a little bit speechless on that one.
Oh yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, you're talking about an elected.
On top of that,
you're talking about an elected official that is, you know, basically the top law enforcement person, and you have, you know, wife being, you know, having a podcast that is, you know, it's not right. It's not right.
No, it's not. So we have people that are here. They want to know about Chris and what his life is like in prison.
Yes.
You had said that I know how he is being treated and what the future holds for him, how he is being treated, and what and so what does the future look for him? Well, how is he being treated, for one?
Well, I was surprised that he, I shouldn't say I was surprised that he got shipped, you know, somewhere else, but where he was shipped to, Dodge Correctional, I'm familiar with that because my ex-wife lived up there, and I used to drive by there, you know, a lot. So, you know, I knew where it was, but what's his life like? He must be. The thing is, the prison knows how, you know, how high profile he is. Okay, so they have to protect him, and he's got to be in PC, obviously, protective custody. You know, which PC is.
But I don't think that he's not. It's reported that he is just kind of in the special needs unit, and he even has a job.
Well, now when you say that, that's interesting because I thought about that. Before I got released, where I was in a notorious prison in Indiana, Northwest Indiana. And before I got released, I got a job, and I was put in the in what was the medical unit because I got a job as a wheelchair pusher for the disabled that were in there. And I think that could be the most that he could hope for and where he is, because he can't go to general population. There's no way. And even being in like a medical, it was considered a medical dorm where I was. When I finished the program that I had, and then I could get a job, that's where I went, and I got a job, and I was a wheelchair pusher. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of people in there, you know, that didn't need to be in there. But the whole prison thing, Amy, is it's a completely different world. I mean, you would not believe, you know. I mean, I could sit here and tell you stories for days. But if he is in a dorm like that, he could be more safe and looked after. But he's not. Anybody can be touched anywhere in prison. Let me just say that.
Do you feel like the longer he's in prison, the safer he gets, or the more lax people tend to get, so he's in more danger? Or do you think people are just kind of relaxing? Because I know I like to watch Marcy Marie. She has on the Rec Yard, and she said like in the women's prison, people want to know, they find out what your charge is, and once you know they find out about it, they just like, even if it's a bad charge, they just kind of go on with their business. Women they're not really, you know, doing too much to one another regarding charges.
I never had to deal with that, to be honest with you. In prison, people didn't ask me what my charge was. That wasn't the concern. Because based upon where you were, you know, I would assume that people would, you know, inquire about your charge if you were, say, in PC more, okay, which is protective custody or isolation. Richard Allen was in the prison that I was in. I don't know if you bought, you know, the murders down by us. They kept him in isolation in the prison I was in. And
are you talking about the Delphi murder or
the Delphi? Yes,
murder?
yes.
How were they treating him?
They were. It was not good. Evidently, they were not feeding him. He was in the shoe. What people call the shoe. That's you know, the
Was that to
isolated.
keep him safe?
Yeah. So
was that to keep him safe?
No, that was to keep him quiet. You know, that was a whole different thing there. You know.
Yeah, Chris said that when he was in the jail, they would like yell over to him and tell him to unalive himself and stuff like that. So
it was
he was
unbelievable.
getting harassment like that. And I feel like but when he went to the Colorado the Colorado prison, they were doing things like not feeding him and stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons why they had to move him to this.
You know what? They did the same thing at Westville where I was, and that was a big, huge thing. So, yeah.
Just not feeding people.
Not feeding him.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And others.
They called it air trays because you couldn't see in the tray, and they wouldn't fill it up with food.
Yeah, and that was, you know, just where I was notorious for the bad treatment of people. You know. It was a 75-year-old mental hospital, so, you know, I mean.
When Chris took his plea deal and everything stopped, like all the investigation and things like that, is that another reason why they do the plea deal, so they don't have to, like, spend the resources to...
Absolutely. That's the whole goal. That's the whole goal of the prosecution, and that's why they do that, is to save money. If everybody went to trial, like, you know, this country is supposed to work, the legal system is supposed to work, it would all be off the rails, you know. They put plea deals to save money, you know.
Yeah. You had put in your email to me, you said that in the legal system, the goal being the plea deal, and they hit you with a load of underlying charges up front, and it's all set up for failure, keeping the person in the system instead of successfully changing themselves into what is expected of them. So instead, we throw more charges, sign more plea deals, and build more prisons. And there must be a better way. What does a better way look like to you?
A better way means, through my eyes, more effort upon the state side to ensure the success of the client that's being released. When I got released from prison, I was just dropped off, and it was like, you know, here you go. Yeah, best of luck to you, you know. And when I had to report to probation, I was asking for help. Hey, look, I need resources. I need, please help me. And there was nothing there. But yet, when I can't come make your payment because I haven't found work because I haven't had help, that's what I'm talking about. There needs to be
preparing you better for when people, because most people do get out of prison. That's another thing people don't realize is most people are going to get out of prison. And so why not help them be a better person in there so that they can be better without us?
And like I told you, I gravitated more towards the guys who had done a lot of time, like 10, 15, 20 years in prison when they were getting out. They were different than the people that were only there for, anyway. Point being is, we are intent on, what we are doing. and we need help, you know, but there's no help through the state, and you know, you hit a brick wall. You know, you go to places and apply different places, and because you have a record, people don't want to hire you, but they're not looking at the person that's in front of them. They're looking at the person that is in the past, you know.
Do you think there's any possible way that Chris Watts will ever get out of prison?
No, it's not even possible. I mean, no. I mean, how could he?
Yeah, and do you think there's any possible way that Nicole Kessinger, will ever be brought to charges and sent to trial or anything like that?
I think that's our goal. I mean, that's our that's our hope. You know, in looking at this whole thing and the totality of, you know, the family and the Rourkes, you know, and everybody and all of the evidence, there has to be some kind of accountability, Amy. You know, it can't just be Chris going down for this. I mean, I'm sorry. You know?
Yeah, it's really a shame that once he confessed or whatever he did, that
you know, I mean, he can try to vouch for her and take the charges and all that, but you know, it's a Bonnie and Clyde thing. I mean, it's just so obvious that, you know, she was there. And when you talk about this kind of you know, this kind of thing where you have the deaths of, you know, 4 people, it's just, you know, she has to be held accountable. So
let's hop over into chat and see what people are saying. Fresno World says, yeah, certain person was behind it too and got off scot-free. Heavenly says, tick, tick, CW, like time is ticking. I'm guessing like many of the people that ex-prisoners that I've spoken to say that it's only a matter of time and that Chris has something on his head. What would a prisoner, like, what would be put on his head? Like, explain this to me.
Well, he's kind of protected right now, being in PC, but he is labeled as, you know, a child killer, and that is a no in prison. You know, the rapist, the SA, that's a no in prison, and that will guarantee you either a short ride out of there in a box, or, you know, a lifelong sentence of hurting. And he's protected right now because of his notoriety. You know, I know it's been a few years, but he's still in PC.
As soon as they let Dahmer out of PC, his life was taken.
Pardon?
Remember how as soon as they let Dahmer out of PC, his life was taken, and he was at the same facility.
Immediately, you know, immediately. And, you know, like I told you at the beginning, you know, that's the way prison is. Unfortunately, it's a completely different world. It's volatile. It's savage.
What does it look like when something's taken out on somebody? Does, like, somebody say, hey, this is what we're going to do to them? Or, like, do they just wait for opportunity? Like, what does that mean exactly?
Sure. I mean, it's all of the above. You wait for opportunity. You know, that's what prison is. Prison is waiting for opportunities for things. That's all you have to do is sit around and watch. You know, and when you take all this in, you learn patterns of people, and you know, it's fairly easy. You know, I mean, and that's all you have to do.
Just watch people and just observe. Like, it's the ultimate people watching thing, right?
Yeah, and it's funny, like, you know, when, like, the whole block there's tension, and you know when something's going to happen, you know. And I've been around a lot of times where I've seen, you know, I've just looked over my shoulder because I knew something was going to happen, and I saw something happen, and here goes, you know, the medics are coming in, you know.
So it's just kind of a feeling that goes on. Karen says, oops, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, it's terrible. I mean, that's prison.
Yeah. Karen says, I actually feel sorry for CW. He was just a poor guy that got mixed up with the wrong people. It could happen to your family. Have mercy on us, Lord. Well, I don't know if I agree with all that, but no.
Well, that's an interesting point, though, Amy. I mean, if you look at CW, he was, just a normal guy before meeting a certain
Was he
person.
normal? Was he normal?
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you're.
Like, I don't know. Was he normal? I do think I think the patches had something to do with it. And I think they were doing other substances. They were doing substances. I shouldn't say that because the patch isn't considered a substance, I guess. But I think they were doing stuff. And I think his brain chemistry was being altered. And NK was feeding him stuff that he had never been, fed before. Like she was making him think that his opinion mattered, which she was gearing up to be worse than Shanann, I think.
She made him. I hate to say, I was going to say some women can do that to you, but it's.
Well, it's like Shanann. I don't know. Okay, so I was thinking about this, and I was thinking people keep saying like, okay, like just getting off a little topic, but the Gypsy Rose situation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And Ryan, her husband, has been coming on and saying, I'm never going to talk bad about Gypsy. And then people are like, but why? Why are you being so faithful to him and to her? And I'm like, Gypsy picks men that the world has rejected, makes them feel special, and so they're bonded to her. But NK is the man that, like, Chris already had that experience with Shanann going through that special feeling phase, and I don't know. So I don't know what his motivation.
But he felt unimportant and emasculated with Shanann,
Yeah, that's true.
And all of a sudden, here comes this free spirit, and he could go out and and be who he wants to be, and
yeah, he really thought that his life was going to be something different.
And the point being is, as a man, you should have, when your wife came to you, and she did, come to him, with, hey, look, our marriage is in trouble. As a man, he should have worked on that, and he made no effort. All he did was, put his effort towards this other, that's not right.
He was just waiting for her to go to North Carolina. His effort was elsewhere.
You're right. I mean, that's all he was thinking of was the next moment in his life, and that can't be the way you think.
Mm-hmm.
He had no respect for what it's. Yeah.
Anne Marie says, "This is very interesting. Thank you. You're welcome." And Fresno's World said, "Yeah, I agree on that one. Families have gone through horrible stuff. Yep. Yeah, both families have gone through it. I wouldn't put it on one family more than the other. Well, would I? Yeah, I think the Rechecks probably have gone through it because they've lost their only grandkids, their only daughter.
Yes.
But the Watts have lost too. They've lost.
Yeah, they lost their granddaughters, and in a sense, they lost their son. Yes.
Kelsey says, oops, what I was going to say is, oh man, there is so much I can say regarding this topic, in particular, how felons are set up for failure upon release, but it is possible for them to be successful. Yes, if they have truly decided this is what they're going to do. Yeah, but I mean, shouldn't it be a little bit? Yeah, I agree. It should be a little bit easier for them when they get out.
Look, I'm not saying, it should be easy street for us, but, there could be more resources and we should be looked upon differently. Because, I mean, I'm not that person anymore, so.
Good. Kelsey says, I've known a few people who are either in prison or have been there. It all depends on the population he is around, from what I gather. Is that true? Who you hang around in prison, it all depends on that?
Yes, you have to be around the right people in prison for sure. Yes, she's definitely right.
Yeah. Karen says, I believe he is trying to live for the Lord now, that there is hope. Well, I guess there's always hope.
Yes.
Jay Lord says, "Hey, Jay Lord. Hey, by the way, has anybody?" This reminds me, I hadn't seen Jay Lord in a while, but this sparked. Has anyone seen Miss Murdaugh? I haven't seen her in a while. She's a dragonfly, and I'm a little worried about her. She's like my first dragonfly, and she was Dragonfly of the Week, and she hasn't said anything, and I'm just a little worried about her. If anyone sees her out and about around the interwebs, tell her I said hi. Sometimes she's out. She changes her name to Tinkerbell or Tink or something, but I've seen her in other places. So if anybody's seen her, or just like let us know how you're doing. Don't leave us hanging like this. Jay Lord says Cindy, Ronnie, and Jamie are taken out of context constantly and treated horribly. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Jamie, but I do think that the grandparents are not treated well, but they didn't come out of the gate well, and I don't think people have forgotten that. But I have, and I think that 6 years have gone by, and we should give them a chance to heal and, heal.
Absolutely.
I think healing needs to be done for everybody. What do you think?
I can't even begin to imagine the what they have gone through.
How did your parents react? How did your parents react to it?
My most recent crimes, which resulted in my incarceration, my parents were already dead.
Oh, okay.
So
that's something too. Like the Watts aren't young. Like Chris is there's going to be a time in his life where his parents aren't going to be there to take his phone calls and worship him and, make him feel special. I think it's just horrible what he's doing to them by not telling them the truth.
Well, I mean, do you think he hasn't told them the truth? I mean, do you think that they possibly know by now and they're just withholding? I thought about that too.
That's something to think about. They
probably not. Because I can't see them. I don't know.
You don't strike me as people that would withhold that information, because even when they visited him and Ronnie threw the plate in front of him, he's told that story many, many times. So,
but look, from all the YouTubers out there and all the investigation, the armchair investigation that we've been doing, I think it's clear to see what we can start to put together a real, a real story about what happened that night. Something believable.
Mm-hmm.
And not what was presented to us, because that is not believable.
Yep.
So,
Jeff, have I covered everything you wanted to cover? Was there anything that you wanted to mention that I haven't mentioned? There's a lot. I haven't covered everything I wanted to cover, but we're running out of time. So I'm just wondering if you had anything else you wanted to talk about.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe we can do something in the future, because there's things I want to talk about too. So.
Oh, for sure. Just pick a topic and we can go and do it.
Yeah, I got plenty of topics. This could go on for hours, and days, so.
Yeah, Kelsey, I agree that I don't know if he's ever going to tell his parents the truth. She says, my ex-husband is serving a life sentence for second-degree unaliving, and his poor dad is elderly and believes the lies he is told. The facts were different. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
See.
Yeah, it's just...
That's what I'm talking about, Amy.
It's really... Do you have a channel?
No, I don't. No.
Oh, you don't? Okay. So I didn't know if we needed to plug something. Okay, yeah, for sure. We should do this again sometime. Talk about the Watts case again.
Sounds great. Hey, thank you very much for all your hospitality. I appreciate it, and it was really interesting.
Yeah, it was. Thank you for being on here, Jeff. I'll see you next time. Okay.
Sounds great, Amy.
Bye, Jeff.
All right. Have a good night.
Okay, so that was Jeff, and he served time, and I get Indiana and Illinois mixed up. I think he said Indiana, but he's going to be back on the show talking more about that, and we would love to have him back on the show. It's really sad what our U.S. system, I forgot to ask him too, are there plea deals in? I know there's someone that said they were in the UK. Are there plea deals in like the European system, England system? I don't know. Is this a stupid question to ask? Are there plea deals in other court systems? Does anyone know? I don't know. I should have asked that question. It was on my list of questions, but it was way down. I'll ask next time. Or if you know, just put down in the comments for me so I can know that burning question. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and ring the bell if you subscribe. I want all of you guys to know that I love you guys so, so much. I'm so grateful for you, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I loved you. Please don't take my son.